So, guys, today I want to talk about your environment and how it actually directly influences your success, your goals, and your mindset. A lot of people know that it takes a good mindset and hard work to be successful, but they commonly forget the third thing, which is actually your environment. And your environment is so important because it influences your mindset, and your mindset shapes your results, right? So, today I'm going to break down the four environments that influence us currently and how we can control them to set ourselves up for success. And these environments are one, people, which is your parents, your friends, your family, basically anyone you surround yourself with. Two, your physical environment, which is where you live, the town you live in, and who you live with. And third is your digital environment, which is social media and the type of content you consume. And fourth and finally is your mental environment, which is habits, beliefs, and actions. So first, I want to start with your people environment, specifically your parents, because technically they are the first environment that you are born into. Your parents are your first environment because they are the ones that raise you, and naturally you're going to adopt their beliefs, their mannerisms, the way they act, their knowledge. Basically, your parents teach you almost everything that you know at a young age, and they're the ones that you go to for advice, right? They're the first person that your mom or your dad is the first person you always go to for advice. And that advice carries emotional weight because coming from the people that raised you. But that doesn't mean that advice is always right. And this is kind of where it ties in with why this environment might be bad for you. Because I'm just going to give you an example from my life. My parents always told me to go to school, get good grades, go to college, and get a good job. And when I told them I wanted to start a business, this completely went against that belief that they had installed in me and that they believed themselves. So what they basically didn't believe that it was possible for me to do this, and they completely doubted it. And in a way, they got mad at me for going against what they believed in and what they had always told me to do. And it's not because they wanted me to fail. It's because they were just raised in a different era and they don't understand the possibilities of social media nowadays and starting an online business. They're not trying to doubt you, they're just protecting you based on their own fears or their own insecurities. And I know it's kind of mean to say that about your parents, but it's the truth. Look, I love my mom and dad, but I realize that they're not always going to give me the best advice because they're completely different people and they have completely different beliefs than I have myself now. And that's what I'm trying to say. You have to form your own beliefs, and you can't just let other people form them for you or tell you what to do. Yes, their advice can be very good sometimes, and you should absolutely follow their advice, but you have to realize the difference between good advice and bad advice and what's helpful for your life. Do not let your environment tell you what you need to do with your life. And the same can be said about family. Similar to parents, their advice carries that emotional weight as well, but a lot of them might doubt your goals as well. You need to remember not to take advice from somebody that's not living the life you want or has the result you want. For example, if you want to get a six-pack, you want to get abs, you wouldn't go to someone that's fat or overweight and ask them what their workout routine is, right? You would go to the person that's a nutritionist that is already ripped and ask them what their workout routine is. You need to learn from the people that already have the success and the result you want, not from the people closest to you and not from the people that don't have that result you want. Look, like I said, I'm sure we all love our parents and we all want to take the advice from them. But you really do need to realize that their advice is not always going to be the best advice for your life. You need to decide that for yourself. And the same thing goes with your friends. Okay, these are some of the most influential people in your life as well. And for me, I was surrounded by the wrong friends in my early years of adulthood and throughout high school. I had so many different types of friends. I would have the people that partied. I had friends that played video games all day. But the thing they mostly all had in common was they had absolutely no goals for their life, and they were just consistent with staying average and having bad habits. And this subtle influence rubbed off of me. Their hobbies became my hobbies just from hanging out with them. And eventually I realized that these people weren't good for my life anymore. They were bad influences on me. The people that partied, they wanted me to go to the parties with them and drink with them, and that's not something I was interested in. And the people that I played video games with, that's all they would talk about. They would want me to get online with them, and it would just distract me from my goals. And that was one of the biggest reasons it took me so long to actually realize what I wanted to do, because I was so busy playing the video games that I never consumed the right stuff online. I was always watching video game tutorials, things like that. We'll get more into the content environment in the next one. But I want to just talk about how your friends can be bad influences on you and you don't even realize it. You just need to take a look at your friends and think, are they pushing you forward in life or are they holding you back? For me, all my friends from high school, all the friends that I thought were my real friends, turned out to be toxic for my life and not good friends for me. They were holding me back from reaching my true potential, and that's why I had to cut them off. I know it doesn't sound right, and I know it might be hard for you to cut off friends that you've been friends with for 5+ years throughout high school like I was, but I realized that it was better for my life. Yes, it was hard for me to do it in that moment, but once I did it, I felt this sense of freedom because I felt like I was actually able to focus on myself and not have to be concerned with other people and other people's feelings anymore, as bad as that sounds. It's lonely at first when you cut off these people and you lose friends, but sometimes isolation is the bridge between your old life and your new one. A small circle is actually better than a large circle because, like I said, I had so many friends that wanted to play video games. I had so many friends that wanted to party, and these people I didn't need to have in my circle. Nowadays, I only have a few friends, and I actually like it better because these people uplift me. They have the same goals as me, and they're positive influences on my life. You know, I'm only hanging around people now that are gonna inspire me, that are gonna influence me. That's why I'm really only friends with people now that are building businesses, that are also entrepreneurs, that are actually doing something with their lives. Maybe they're not an entrepreneur, but they're going to the gym every day, they're working out, and they're building discipline. They're doing something with their lives. That's what I'm trying to say. You just have to have people around you that are on the same path as you, that have the same mindset as you. Don't let the people from your past drag you down, and don't let the people that you're just letting stick around drag you down. You need to realize who's your real friends and who's your fake friends. The next environment I want to talk about is your physical environment, which is actually where you live, the town you grew up in, and the people you live with. So where you live actually plays a big part in the way you see life and what your standards are. For example, if you grew up in a small city and a lot of people work minimum wage jobs, naturally you're going to think that's normal, and that's where you're going to set your standard in life. But vice versa, if you grew up in a wealthy area where you see a lot of people getting high paying tech jobs, you maybe live in a big city or something like that, then that's where you're going to set your standard, and that's the goal you're going to aim for. Either way, the town that you grew up in and the environment you grew up in directly influences the goals you're going to have in life. And a lot of people just set their standard to wherever they live and wherever they grew up. And I get it. A lot of us can't just get up and move or travel somewhere, but it's actually very easy to see other people's perspectives on life and other people outside of your hometown simply just by looking up YouTube videos. There's a ton of YouTube videos out there of people traveling, and there's also a ton of videos of young entrepreneurs showcasing their lifestyle. I see them all the time. I recommend it. And it's simple as just watching those videos to show you the possibilities of life, because believe it or not, there's a whole world out there besides your hometown, and you just need to experience what the possibilities are in life instead of only seeing what the possibilities are within your town. Also, another thing I would recommend is just going to places where wealthy people hang out so you can observe how they act, what their life is like, and all of that, just so you can fully get the experience of the highest possibility out there for yourself. So the next environment that I actually want to talk about, and it's one of the most important things in today's day and age, is your digital environment or your social media environment. You are what you consume. And what this means is the people you follow online, the type of content you watch, the type of content you consume is where you're gonna have your belief system form, and it's what's gonna influence you in your life. So I know for me, a lot of the belief system and the mindset that I have now about getting rich and the possibilities in life has actually been formed not from the people around me, as I just went over, but actually from the people that I followed online and the type of videos that I watch. So going back to you are what you consume, the videos that you watch and the people you watch, you are going to adopt their beliefs and adopt a lot of their habits and the things that you've learned from them. For example, when I was younger, this was when I was about 12 or 13, when I first got into social media, I followed a ton of musicians online because at the time I was very interested in music. So that's what I wanted to become, was a musician, because that's what I had been following online, that's what influenced me, and that's what inspired me. But deep down, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I just didn't know it yet. In fact, it took all the way until I was 22 years old to finally be exposed to the make money online niche. And once I started watching videos on this, that's when I really got inspired and realized what I wanted to do with my life. So why am I telling you all this? It's because what you consume online directly influences you. If you waste your time consuming funny memes, video game tutorials, and other random stuff like that, that's what you're going to be focused on, and that's where your attention's going to go. But if you instead focus on educational content, like how to build a business, self-discipline, and things like that, that's where you're really going to grow in life, and that's where content's going to influence you positively. There's so many examples in my life where I just wasted time on things that weren't my true passions and true interests because that's the content I was consuming. Like I said, when I was 12 all the way until I was 19, I was consuming content on music, and that really wasn't my true passion. I feel like I was just chasing a lifestyle because that's what I saw, and that's what I thought was the only possibility, and that's what my friends thought was cool for me to do. So that's what I continued to do because I thought it's what I wanted to do, but it turns out it wasn't. And once I branched out and tried other things like my photography business, I started recording my first YouTube videos, and I just started consuming different types of content. That's when it eventually led to me discovering online business. So my recommendation is, if you're like how I was before, you're consuming funny memes and just random stuff online, unfollow all that stuff and start following things that align with how you want your future to be, what you actually want to do in life. If you're like me up until I was 22, where I didn't really know what I wanted to do, try different things, consume different types of content, get different perspectives from people, just learn valuable skills, learn anything that isn't funny memes. Like, just follow valuable things online and don't waste your time scrolling. Trust me, it isn't worth it and you're going to regret it later. That's the one takeaway I want you to take away from the social environment lesson. Now getting into the last environment, which is your mental environment, this is also very important. Your self-talk in your head is what you have to live with 24/7. If you're the type of person that's always negative and always doubting yourself, it's going to be very hard for you to grow, and eventually you're going to start believing these thoughts like, I'm never going to get rich, I'm never going to be successful, and you're just going to go into a shell and prevent yourself from actually ever reaching your potential. You're going to start believing that these things are never going to happen, and you're going to start losing your confidence. You need to build a strong mindset. If people are telling you it's not possible, you don't need to believe that yourself. I used to let the doubts that I had in my head and all the things people told me about how it's not possible consume me. Trust me. I went over this with how my parents doubted me, my family doubted me, and how I used to let it consume me and let it hold me back for years and never get started or stay consistent with anything. But once I stopped feeling that way, it felt so freeing. Because now I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks, because I know what my capabilities are, and I know in the near future that I will be rich, that I will be successful. I believe in myself so much, and that really is the key to all this. You have to believe in yourself even when no one else does. One more thing that I will say is that energy attracts energy. If you have positive thoughts, you will attract positive things into your life. If you believe that you are going to get rich, it will happen one day. You really need to protect this positive energy and not let the negativity or the doubts creep into your mind, because those are what holds you back, and that's what makes you procrastinate, is when you have doubts, when you don't believe something's going to happen. You need to believe it's going to happen no matter what. You kind of have to be delusional. I've seen a lot of videos with that title, "You have to be delusional to get rich," and it really is the truth. You need to believe that it's going to happen no matter what anyone tells you, no matter how many things are against you, because there's so many people that have had the odds stacked against them, but they made it through everything and eventually reached success, and you can do it too. So to sum up everything I've talked about in this video, your environment has created who you are today, but now it's up to you to create the environment that builds who you're meant to be. You just have to start with small things. Like I said, you can do things such as follow people that actually inspire you on social media, follow things you're actually passionate about. If you have a TV controller next to your bed, move it to the other side of the room so you don't immediately turn on that TV when you wake up, and start the chain of bad habits in the morning. Small changes will compound into big results. Every successful person started with an environment that didn't match their goals. Like, think about this. Do you think entrepreneurs were born saying that they want to become an entrepreneur? No, they learned over time what they wanted to do, and they built the skills possible to do it. They changed their environment and built a new one. Your environment explains the current results you have right now, but it doesn't have to define your future ones. Change your environment into a better one so you can build the future you want to build. I hope this video was able to inspire you guys, and you're now able to look at your environment with a wider lens and see the things you need to change. With that being said, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.